Hi, this is Mr. Kunard, and this part of the introductory science module is going to be focusing on several things and skills that we want you to be able to learn and use in science this year. One resource we're going to be using is something called FOSS, F-O-S-S, and it stands for Full Option Science System, up here at the top. And it is an online resource that we'll use with our lessons. They put together all of our kits, they help us match our curriculum, and they do a good job of creating some online resources that we're going to be making use of as we go along this year. One thing we need to practice is to be able to get onto their website, and it is fossweb.com right there. And when you do that, you will be prompted with a login screen, and it will ask you for two things. One, your school email. So you're going to use your at shawneeheights.org email address. Remember, it's your last name and then the first letter, I think, of your first name. And that is not case specific, not case specific at all. So capital letters, lowercase, doesn't matter. Then the second thing is your password is going to be your PowerSchool password. Your PowerSchool password, and that is case specific. We want to make sure that capital letters are capital and lowercase letters are lowercase. On the next slide, you'll see a picture of what that login screen looks like when you go to fossweb.com, and we will practice that in class. Here's a look at that fossweb.com login page. So hopefully you'll find that. In the middle there where it says to log in, you're going to look for the email address, and that's going to be your at shawneeheights.org email address, the last name and then the first initial, and then your password, and that's going to be your PowerSchool password. And again, remember, the email is not case sensitive, so you can have uppercase and lowercase. But the password part is. So if it's a capital letter, make sure it's a capital letter. If it's lowercase, make sure it's a lowercase. Go ahead and log on and see if you can get that all set up. Now on a different note, one of the things we're going to ask you to do that may be different from your elementary school is to you being more of a scientist. Practice being a scientist. So what does that look like or mean? Well, when you're a scientist, you do observe things, you measure things, you record things, and you share those things that you see and experience. One of the things we'll ask you to do is to observe different stuff. Make observations about it. What are you seeing? What are you experiencing? And those observations are really more than just what you see. They're actually all of your senses. What you feel, taste, touch, smell, as well as see. So those are all important characteristics of what it means to be a scientist. Here's some examples of something we might ask you to do in science is to look at an object or to see an object, or maybe it's in person and you can actually measure something about those objects. Our task is to, tell us about these things. Yes, we probably know what they are, an apple, a dead skunk, a beagle, or cookies, chocolate chip in this case, but more so just, how can we measure them? What can we measure about them? We all kind of understand what an apple is, but what if you're describing it to your grandmother on the telephone and not a video? She has to, you have to describe to her what you're seeing. So that's what we're asking you to do when we make observations. If you're looking at the dog, what color is it? How tall is it? What does it weigh? How long is it? How long's the tail? How long? Because not all dogs are the same. Cookies, what do they smell like, do you think? What do they taste like? The skunk, definitely when you drive by it, you will catch a whiff of what the skunk smells like. That's unlike anything else. So those kind of observations, you want to be as clear as you can using all of your five senses, or the ones that you really realistically can use, to be able to then describe, weigh, measure, how big is it, the size, any of those kinds of things that go into making observations. So if you pick one of those, think about all the different things you can do to measure and observe about those items. We're going to ask you to do that a little bit later. Once we've made our observations, we must be able to record that and report that information to other people. So it may seem simple to say this is an apple, and everybody thinks they know what an apple looks like, but not all apples are the same. So you want to be able to explain it in observation terms so that people will be able to think about it and see and come up with what exactly you're trying to say. And not just in doing so, we want to be able to put it into complete sentences. So when you're describing that apple, don't just say red and yellow. You would say the color of the apple is mostly red with some yellow parts to it. Or the dog, it's not, what kind of dog? You could say it's a beagle, but not all beagles are the same. So we want to say it's mostly white with some patches of brown and black on it. And those would be written in complete sentences. One thing we want you to do is to be able to practice writing some of those complete sentences based on your observations. So I want you to think back to, or you can pause and go back to a couple of those slides before where we looked at those. You want you to think about or choose a picture of one of those slides that have an apple, a skunk, a dog, or the cookies. So check those so you remember what those were like. Then I want you to go to notability. In one of the previous pages, modules, you should have covered something about notability with Mr. Bradshaw. What I want you to do is to go into notability, and then you should have a set of folders that we set up for you off to the left side. You're going to go to the Science Journal one, and create a new note in the Science Journal, a new note there. Then you're going to title it, Recording My Observations. Then from that point, I want you to, think back to what was in that picture and write 5 sentences describing what you're observing. Remember, it's what you can measure and what you use with your 5 senses. So if you pick one of those, think about all the things that you can observe and measure of that picture. Size, shape, weight, color, any of those kinds of things is what you want to be able to see. So look for those. And then we will then upload it into your Canvas Science course when you're all done with that.